The most audacious element of this campaign is that it links us back to our roots. Our roots talk to advancing lives in a manner that seeks to clarify what the history of the founders, what they sought to achieve, which is really the very things that we are seeking to achieve as African Bank in our vision today.
This is such a heartwarming campaign. This is such an emotional, moving campaign. It's like going back to the roots. It's like a reminder of who we are, where we started, why we started in the first place.
Well, the most audacious aspect of this campaign for me is in the very simple fact that it is a clear campaign in its messaging of our audacious goals as African Bank. These goals are encapsulated in our Accelerate 25 strategy, which moves the bank into new client segments such as business banking, SMEs, and new capabilities.
If you think about what African Bank has been up until this repositioning, from a market perspective, it would have been seen as a micro lender. So this positioning of the bank today actually say, no, we're going back to our roots. And our roots was, we are born to look after businesses in this country that cannot have access to capital and funding. So this is exciting. It's actually slap bang on what we're trying to do.
The biggest audacious goal we need to have is making Accelerate 25 a reality for everybody. Accelerate 25 talks to us serving our current customers better. It talks to finding a different set of customer bases which we need to render our services to. It talks to finding different ways of working to make sure that we are more relevant to our customers.
So we're really committed to our journey for our customers, believing in customer first and customer always. So we're strengthening our digital transformation journey, embracing digital inclusivity, driving points of access, and just ensuring that our customers have the best experience that they can get. For instance, leveraging real-time analytics through data enablement, really embracing next generation technology. So that's how we want to see our world in the next couple of years.
I'm delighted by the fact that we are making this audacious move into creating a scalable, diversified, data-enabled, customer-centric bank. One that will be sustainable and one that will meet the universal needs of our customers beyond just retail banking.
We're very excited as a foundation. This has long been coming. It's something that our patron has worked on for a very long time. It was since 1994 up to the present day, almost 30 years that the patron has dedicated his time, and it has always been his wish that the bank will go back to its original mandate, will go back to its original ethos, would go back to the original slogan of the bank being the bank of the people.
The repositioning of African Bank links us back to our history and our heritage, which is a bank for the people, by the people, serving the people. This is important because if we are going to grow and be a sustainable business, we need to be relevant to the people that we serve, and we need to make sure that we've got more customers that trust and believe in our services. This is the challenge that we have to take on board, and Accelerate 25 gives us a roadmap in terms of achieving that. And this campaign is really trying to capture all that in one statement.
Good afternoon and welcome to our CEO Focus. And today I'm very privileged to be joined by Kennedy Bungane. And for those that don't know, we are very proud to have Kennedy back on campus because 22 odd years ago, he joined the inaugural class of GIBS MBAs. He trusted us when we were not triple accredited and triple crown. He trusted us when we didn't have a name. And I'd like to think over the years, we have paid him back in spades for the trust that him and the first cohort of MBA 2000 had in us. And we have been watching very proudly as he navigated his career in the banking sector, initially at Standard Bank, later at ABSA, and latterly as part of an investment holding company. and we're welcoming back into a strong fold into banking, and hopeful as we speak today, we will strengthen the positioning of both African Bank and GIBS. And for those of you that don't know, I just want to put it out there, I have a deep affection and history for African Bank. So I'll put it out there and ask you to judge me as if I don't ask Kennedy some difficult questions from a historical perspective, but also personally, I have ties to African Bank, and we'll touch on those ties when we're looking at some of the maybe not so happy history of the old African Bank. Kennedy, welcome.
Well, it's a pleasure to be back on campus, and I think I speak on behalf of many alumni that have not yet had the opportunity to say congratulations on being our new dean. You really come in at an interesting time, a wonderful time for this institution that is home to so many of us.
Thank you, Kennedy. So talking about interesting times, I want to maybe kick off on this word audacious, which in the previous video, you all were very, I suppose, smart in making sure it was the golden thread that helps us to understand the repositioned African Bank. But before we look into the future, I wonder whether we can learn from the past. So take us back to the 1960s and help us to understand the audacious ambitions that the Maponyas, the Mthombeni and their colleagues had when they conceived of this notion of banking owned by Africans, for them, by them, and serving them. And just to give us some context about why they thought this was important at that time.
So, Prof, I'm going to actually tell it in a story, because this is exactly where this idea of audacity comes from. A week after I joined African Bank, I was really gifted by my predecessor, Basani, with an email requesting me to consider visiting Winterveld, visiting Tate Mthombeni. And I took on the appointment, drove all the way to Pretoria North, it is proper North Pretoria, and visited Dr. Mthombeni and his wife. He took time.
So I've been there, so I hope you didn't take a sports car, because to get to his house, the road gets quite semi-rural.
Let's just say there was a car that had to be left behind so that I could get to one, better prepared for the gravel to Winterveld and his beautiful farm, where he then told us the story, of the founding of African Bank. The video clip that has just played was actually recorded in our premises a few days after his 95th birthday last month. And so I'm sitting in front of this 95-year-old legend, and with a sharp memory, a very clear sense of vision about the future of the bank, because he remembered that in Soweto in 1965, they gathered at the Orlando Hall, delegates of businessmen and women from all over the country to launch NAFCOC, the National Federated Chamber of Commerce, and that one of the first resolutions that came about at that conference was in response to a need that the entrepreneurs and businessmen and women in that room identified back in 1965, in 1964 rather, as one of the primary needs for success in commerce in South Africa for our people. And that was a need for not just to have a bank where you can put your deposits in and have a means of transacting, but also have a bank that goes beyond that, a bank that would seek to understand the aspiration of those entrepreneurs, of their households, of their children, of their communities, and how to partner with them and grow with them. And that they needed a bank of the people in that sense, a bank that would not be some ivory tower, but a partner to them, a partner to their communities. Now, if that is not audacity, tell me what you understand. Amatama Nesbindi, and these guys were audacious enough in those dark days of apartheid to put their money on the table. They could only raise 70 rands that day, and later on went on to go all over the world to raise capital and funding for what would become African Bank in 1975. Now, that vision of a bank that is purpose-led, that has got a very strong sense of mission in how it would advance their lives, is what has inspired our reimagined vision at African Bank post my joining last year. And I would like to share a little bit about what that means.
What is interesting, one of your colleagues and one of my former colleagues, Zweli, spoke about the African Bank of yesterday, immediate past yesterday, being known as a micro lender, unsecured lending. Whereas actually, when you look back to some of the individuals that started it, these were professional people. These were highly educated people. These were entrepreneurs. And so Dr. Mthombeni, for example, it's interesting for me, what I love about him is that very few people recognize he went and studied agricultural sciences in the US in the 40s and 50s, right? And he did this on his own, no sponsorship. He kind of hustled his way and brought that insight back and becoming an entrepreneur. So using that kind of inspiration, in the late, obviously Mr. Maponya was also a trailblazer in his time, and many others in NAFCOC. So the question I want to ask is, what are you doing as African Bank in being audacious, going back to those roots, in helping African Bank to be a bank for Black professionals, a bank for Black entrepreneurs, and so far, in other words, shifting not from being the mass market banking only, because that's also important, but also being a bank for the people with discretionary savings and discretionary investments and so forth. What's happening around that audacious goal?
Before I answer that very important question, Prof, I do need to just thank you for reminding us of the caliber of those professionals, our founding fathers and mothers, Dr. Mthombeni, the late Dr. Maponya. I mean, the first African to have an MBA in this country, Dr. Kerima Khumula, is the former CEO of this bank. These are people who trailblazed in their professions and started this bank, in fact, with a savings and investment set of products. There wasn't a lending product. So, in its height of it being in touch with its core purpose, this bank understood that it was here to help support entrepreneurs, support the building of a capacity in our communities and in this country that would propel the economy forward. And in our highs and in our lows, where we ended up with curatorships in the mid-90s and recently in 2014, excuse me, and came back with what was then a monoproduct in micro-lending. This is the highs and the lows of African Bank. And yet throughout this time, we continue to have our people, continue to have our customers, over 1 million of them, remaining loyal to this bank because they understood what we are all about. This generation of leadership that I have the honor to lead is asking us to be audacious in reimagining our current state. Our vision is simply that of creating a diversified, a scalable, and a sustainable business going forward. We want to be a bank that is data-enabled and customer-centric, and a bank that will offer the full remit of retail and business banking solutions to our customers. And then we believe that we will achieve this strategy through this vision, rather, through a strategy that is encapsulated in what we call Accelerate 25, a strategy that is got two strong pillars, one of strengthening the core of what we have today in terms of products, customers, and capabilities, and of course, expanding our core so that we can build towards a bank that has got a strong listable proposition in the short period of time between now and 2025. That is the call to action that we have embarked upon, and with the full support of our shareholders and board. And so even today, we're putting forward a proposition out there for those professionals who don't just want a career in banking, but want to make a difference in banking, want to advance lives, to come on board in what is something that is more than just a bank. This is a movement, Kof. It is a movement.
So I'm going to press you on that, and I'm going to
people's lives.
Our founding dean, Prof. Benedel, I like to travel to small towns in this country and see which banks are represented there, particularly in the spirit of really this notion of advancing lives and being an inclusive financial institutions. One of the towns I go to regularly is KwaDukuza. There's lots of African Bank represented there. And recently I went to White River and African Bank is represented there. So it seems to me like the traditional African Bank is properly represented in small towns, is properly represented where the big banks possibly don't really want to. They might be forced to go there, which is fine. But what I'd like to understand is in this ambition that you have, beyond those inclusive spaces, how do you plan to grow? How will I know that I'm now ready to become an African Bank client? All right. Am I ready now, or should I look for something down the line to be able to see that it's appropriate for me to be an African Bank client? Because in as much as you're an appropriate bank for my mother and father in Malamulela, all right, where they live now, I'd like you to be my banker also here in Ilovo where I'm working.
So I'm going to answer that question in two ways. For existing customers today, both in Malamulele, KwaDukuza, and Nelson Mandela Square, by the way, what we're doing four things to ensure that your current experience with us is really enriched. The first thing we're doing is that we're digitizing we're using our existing data analytics and digital capabilities to digitize our customer end-to-end journeys. Okay, whether in KwaDukuza or in the Nelson Mandela Square branch, or via our direct sales or digital channels, we want to ensure that we deploy both the descriptive and also prescriptive data analytics to make sure that your experiences with us are actually improved. That's the first thing. The second thing is that we're investing quite significantly into our IT stability and IT cybersecurity to improve our speed of delivery. Thirdly, we are transforming our sales capability so that we can cross-sell and upsell much better beyond just our strong lending capabilities. We've got a world-class, my world transactional capability, savings and investment products and solutions. We want to deploy them much better to you, our customers, who has unfortunately lent over the last decade, 2 decades and a half, to only come to us when we need lending. So we're changing that quite radically. And over the last 6 months, results are starting to show quite significantly. Lastly, for you, our existing customer, we want to ensure that the deliberate and conscious decision we've taken to have a hybrid distribution channel when others are only going digital only, we've decided to have a much more seamless digital, direct, and physical presence, and give both Ugogo, Kwaduguza, and Auntie at the Sentin branch the choice to either bank with us over their phone, or bank with us over their laptop, or bank with us directly. All of those four strategic themes are really put in place to strengthen what we have, to ensure that you today can have an improved experience in all of our capabilities within the bank. But beyond that, and this goes to the second part of your question, Prof, we know that in doing what I've just said, we transformed this bank quite significantly into this vision that I crafted earlier. But it will not be enough. We've decided to expand the core of our capabilities by one, really establishing a strong alliances ecosystems. We are bequeathed post the resolution of our curatorship with a strong balance sheet, significantly capitalized, with lots of surplus liquidity, with a legacy IT system that would be an envy of the large banks. We have a strong data science team that we are investing significantly over to, as I've said earlier, move from just a deployment of big data and digital for descriptive analytics of our customer experiences, but also prescriptive analytics of our experiences. We are big enough to count, but small enough to be humble. And so we want to be the go-to partner for telcos, for non-bank financial institutions, for fintech and value-added services.
So this is where I want us to maybe dig deeper around it. So if I look at your management team, you still have people like George Rousseau and your former FD, Gustav Rubenheimer, who I think if you look at the back office in terms of your credit management, your liability management, and so forth, his African Bank has always been at the top there as a tech-savvy institution, but possibly in the front end, in terms of client experience, that's where it was lacking. So what I'm hearing you say is one of the value proposition is that the investments you're going to be making are in the client experience part to make it work for people like us to be part of the African Bank community. Can you just unpack some of your fintech strategy? Because in your strategy discussion, you're talking about growing your ecosystem around how you interact with fintech players. What can we look forward to enable us in the client experience space to really feel like now, if I were to choose between Standard Bank, Capitec, and African Bank, I'm now comparing apples with apples.
I'm going to give you two examples of that are live for us, Prof. We clinched a partnership agreement with Blue Label Telecoms and a few months ago.
Which telecoms?
Blue Labels Telecoms.
Blue Labels.
And,
okay,
and Cell C parents that have given us leads onto millions of their customers, where we can provide capabilities in credit and lending decisions behind their packaging of handsets and prepaid data and prepaid airtime to their customers. It gives us access to the tens of thousands of merchants out there that basically live on devices. But the tens of thousands of entrepreneurs that fuel township economy out there. In partnering with them, what that will do for those merchants is that they will have not just a device to work with, but a bank that comes along with them and partners them in understanding exactly what their own customer experiences are, what their flow is, what their working capital needs might be, and see how we partner with them. So this is what not just platform banking or banking as a service for us is about, but this is proper building of alliances ecosystems. For you as our customer, it's got an ability to really enhance your financial interaction with SLC or ComputerGate or any of those things that they do. But the more exciting piece for me is one that Zweli leads for us in building digital SMME and business banking. Which is something that I think one of the I think it was Tandogwazi or
she's
Sharon,
asking.
if I'm not
She's
mistaken, was asking about.
Yeah, so it's Tandogwazi as well as Memphis. They're very keen on Zweli's portfolio. So maybe lean into that and just help us to understand what is your business banking offering. And of course, we can give Memphis more direct information at a later stage around costs. I'm sure Zweli will be very happy to pick up the conversation with you, Memphis. But at a strategic level, give us a view about your business banking proposition there.
Yeah, I mean, Tshepo has also come in on a similar question. I think you probably needed to have Zweli here and not me.
No, we want to see the CEO knows his overall strategy, not just the business lead.
Superman. So our vision for business banking and how to partner with SMMEs is really quite a radical departure from what's done and is in existence out there. We inspired by the simple thought that if we are indeed going to be the bank of the people, by the people, serving the people, our departure point should be to solve for the entrepreneur's success. We will measure our success in SMMEs and in business banking as by the measure of the success that an entrepreneur that banks with us gets to have in one, how we help them address this perennial problem of administrative burdens that distract entrepreneurs from the business of their business. You know, whether it is in tax, in accountings, in payroll management, in all of these aspects of an entrepreneur or small and medium businesses that are not at the core of how they grow, of how they build the business itself. The capabilities we're building in alliances, ecosystems, stretches to our approach in business banking. We are building partnerships with accounting firms. We're building partnerships with people who are in tax and payroll, so that if you come into our SMME and business banking platform, you have this a network of support that you can get as a business person, so that you have the time and the space and cost effectiveness in having those administrative issues attended to, having your banking, management of working capital, management of transactional services, all of that taken care by ourselves and our partners, and give you the space, the time, the support to succeed as an entrepreneur.
At the business side, there's a view that we need to do more around the client experience. And there's a concern around this hybrid strategy you're following around physical and digital, and how you'll keep the costs down. And we know that in banking, the golden number is 55% cost to income ratio. If you can go below that, you're doing well. Above that, you're a bit worried. I know you guys are in that range between 45 and 55%, depending on where we are with your credit loss ratios from time to time. So what is your plan around keeping your costs in that golden range of around 55% cost to income ratio?
That's a very good question, Prof. I think it probably comes from your days as a board member at African Bank. You know us very well. The plan that I've just described There's a lot of investment that we are taking in, which will keep our cost-to-income ratio in the higher 50s in the next year. However, we're quite clear. We've got a line of sight to how we'll then take it back to below 40% towards the latter part of our 2025 strategy. And how we're going to do that is really by continuing to migrate our volumes from the physical to digital. We in the last year or so of COVID, we really started seeing a much higher take-up of our digital versus the physical distribution channels by our customers. We much enjoy that. That does help us reduce OPEX. But once we bed down properly these fintech, telcos, VES partnerships, what you are literally doing is that you are optimizing the use of your physical presence. And this has, of course, changes the economics of your physical branch by just pumping more into that channel and using it a little bit more effectively, and using it also as a significant part of your direct and digital channels. If you are going to be the Amazon of banking, you need that factory, that big factory, in our case, a physical branch, to actually be a funnel for your digital services and your digitized end-to-end customer journey. But that big physical space has got to run like a proper machine. And that's
so it's about asset utilization and so forth. That's great. So
exactly. Just take for my favorite example, Prof, is actually ShopRite. I think they are one of the world's best platform examples. The teller at ShopRite will not just take the groceries that you've bought, but they're also there to sell you your lotto. They are also there to sell you airtime. They're there to sell you tickets. That space, that physical space of that teller, is what I want to turn our branches into. And that is what will drive costs down for us. That is what will make us competitive going forward.
So yesterday was a big day from the SARB announcing the end of a particular process and signaling about the future. It reminded me of an interesting conversation that took place once NAVCOC had raised R1 million and had persuaded Barclays to be their partner in launching a bank, an African bank, and how Prof. Mthombeni embarrassed then Minister of Finance Nico Diedrichs into giving a banking license in 1975. This happens at the United Nations, by the way, for those that are interested in history. As they're coming back from the United Nations, he hassles a license out of Minister Diedrichs. I'm just interested, given that context of the history, is there any chance that you guys could hustle maybe some shares for some of us in that 50%, so we can really help become a bank for the people, by the people as well? And I see that they couldn't find appropriate buyers, but I'm putting my hand up as a potential black shareholder, Kennedy. Could you hustle that as a BEE scheme for the rest of us to participate in?
Well, Prof, I mean, you cited an example of Audacity Day by Dr. Mthombeni back in the day. And that is what has inspired our vision. When I say that we want to be a bank of the people, by the people, serving the underserved, serving the unserviced, serving the people, I want that linked to our corporate strategy, our corporate structure as well. We made the point to our shareholders that our direction of travel actually needs to be validated by this sense that Dr. Mthombeni in the 60s had, that this bank needed to be owned by the people. It cannot be a bank owned by other people, by certain nationalities or certain segments of people. It's got to be owned democratically by our people. And so we were strongly in support of the IPO option, and we are delighted that we now have the mandate from the board to, at the right market environment and the right time of the bank, to then take the company public. Our vision as a company is very clear, that we are going to challenge Amastokvel out there. We are going to challenge workers out there in their collective investment schemes. We're going to challenge households. We're going to challenge entrepreneurs. We're going to challenge our partners who will be in ecosystem alliances with us. We're going to challenge businessmen and women that we are banking to actually own this bank as well, that it becomes a bank of the people, in not just in who it serves, who it seeks to serve, but also in who owns it. So your sense, your request is very much part of this journey of audacity for us, Prof.
So let's talk about leadership. There's some of the changes, people like Olindiwe, people like Unati, people like Ozweli, and of course, before you, people like your chairman that I know. These are some of the people that I know, people like Thabo Dloti, Ozuki, Hemanth, and others that were brought in. This is talent that is new to African Bank, Black professionals. Is that your story? Or is there more to it beyond that? These are all strong and talented and accomplished Black professionals that are choosing to come to African Bank. And what is the story there? What can we read into those kinds of senior top management appointments?
Well, let me answer that in two ways, Prof, because you've channeled this conversation from both looking backward and also looking forward. One of the things Dr. Mthombeni said to me at his dining room in Winterfeld was that, Kennedy, you don't have an excuse. You don't have an excuse to fail. He says when he started the bank, the Minister of Finance then was so, you're right, he was literally forced to give him a license. But then he insisted at the time that one, your branches can only be in the TBVC states, not in the main centers in South Africa. Two, you may only recruit Black Africans. And those were just some of the many limiting factors put in front of our founding fathers. And he looks at me, this 95-year-old, and says, Kennedy, you don't have any of those restrictions. You can go out there and put your branches, pitch your tent at the best places for your customers and for your business. You don't have limitations as to the talent you can bring in. You can recruit anyone that shares your visions and can add value. And so you don't have an excuse. And that, for me, is instructive, Paul, because it says to me, and this is very much the kind of person I look for to join African Bank. It is someone who, talented, qualified, capable, that's just, technically astute. All of those are just qualifiers for me. You don't come into the room without any of that. But the kind of stuff that I really look deep into is your sense of purpose, your sense of personal mission. What do you intend to use your talents, your giftings, your tools of trade to achieve beyond the salary, beyond the bonus, and beyond a CV? Because if you believe in what can actually be done to advance lives through the use of our skills, talents, and giftings, then I can marry that personal sense of purpose with our corporate purpose, with this thing that I've referred to as being the DNA of African Bank, a sense of a movement, really, not just a bank.
So the philosophy is
like
about the movement. So you are looking for people that are attracted to purpose and, as a consequence, they're joining a movement.
Exactly. That is why you could have a Zoli Manyati come in, or a Daryl Adriansen move from a posh big job in another bank to come and join us. It's because this is a place of mission. This is a movement. It's not just another bank.
Tell us a little bit about leadership philosophy. So in business school, we explain, and HR practitioners will tell you, people might join an organization, but people leave their managers. So in other words, they might join an organization because they're attracted to this mission, but in order to stay, they need to have the direct leadership alignment. So if I were to join your team, what is that leadership alignment that I am aligning to? So who is Kennedy Bungane, and what are your leadership lessons that you bring into this movement?
Well, Prof, Kennedy is a product of great leaders. I am a living beneficiary of a mother that dared to leave Enkolweni and Namakwe to come to the belly of the beast in Joburg and make a name for herself. I'm a product of a boy from Underberg and Dawane that dared the system and wanted to create something beyond just our village of Bungane and Zimku. And at school, at university, at church, in the community, I have been blessed to have aunts, uncles, teachers, lecturers who saw something in me and stretched me in terms of my learning, my growth, equipped me in terms of what I needed to have in order to be better. And that is what has produced Kennedy Bungane. And that is the leadership philosophy I live by. I am successful when, as a leader, I can identify talent, I can identify capability, help place it in an area where it might be best expressed, help support it, back it, push it, sometimes stretch it, so that it can best express itself, and then be a cheerleader for those talented people around me. I am at my best when I'm on the sidelines cheering a well-organized team of superstars playing not just in their positions, but playing for one another to achieve a single transformative outcome. That is my leadership philosophy, and that is what I try to achieve every day in interface, not just with colleagues at the African Bank, but at home and everywhere else.
So people in business schools, we talk about being on the dance floor or being on the balcony. I wonder, for leaders at this moment, given the challenges we are faced with on the continent, we are faced with in this country, of resource constraint on the one hand, of really poor growth prospects at a country level on the other, challenges around the war and its impact on the broader economy, challenges around COVID, challenges about a just transition. How much of that requires you to be on the dance floor, and how much demands you to remain on the balcony? How do you balance your time about being on the dance floor versus being on the balcony as a group CEO?
No, that's a tough one, Prof, because I don't believe there's one constant and consistent answer for a leader. I don't think leaders have got the luxury of either being on the dance floor or being on the balcony, or in the example I prefer, I don't believe leaders have got the luxury of just staying on the sidelines as a coach and a cheerleader and never stepping into the field of play. I think that luxury is for people who stand behind pulpits, but no, not leaders. There are times that require a leader to actually step into the ring themselves and box. And that is why leadership is contextual in terms of the space, the arena you are in, and what is required in there. I believe that is why leaders need to have a strong sense of own capability. A leader in banking is required to be technically astute on certain things that could be boring and are technical for them to be successful, even as they sometimes need to step up onto the balcony or on the sidelines to then, having helped sort out a specific matter, to then ensure that the leadership team, to ensure that everybody else gets back into playing their role and moving the organization forward. And that is why, with due respect, I wouldn't, wake up tomorrow and try and run an engineering company. I think leaders that come from that background are probably going to be better than I am, and that is why I'm not going to wake up tomorrow and go and engineer a fighter jet. I think leaders need to be able to step into the ring now and again, and I've found in my leadership examples, Prof, that whenever I did that pointedly, it inspires the team around me, and it can galvanize them into the kind of action that helps bring about belief in our ability to execute on strategy. Some of the challenges that we have in South Africa today and in the world generally is where a leader feels satisfied to cast a vision and to show a direction of travel and doesn't then spur on actual action. Early success in strategy execution helps about bring momentum in realizing that strategy and reaching out to vision.
There's three words, scalable and sustainable banking, all right? So for me, you guys have an aspiration to do this trade-off between scalable on the one hand and sustainable on the other. And I don't know what you mean by sustainable. Is it financially sustainable, or is it sustainable as Bega Fakude is saying, which is the ESG conversation, right? If it's the latter, what kind of leadership philosophy is going to help you to kind of balance that triumvirate of people, planet, and profit?
I think it's an important question that Bega has raised, and thank you. It would have been amiss for this conversation to end without us talking about it. So thank you, Bega. I think the challenge of our generation, Prof, not just as South Africans or Africans, but of our generation, is really ensuring that we get ESG at the top of our agenda as leaders. I'm quite chuffed by the fact that we issued our first integrated report as African Bank last year. We've appointed a head of sustainability, chair who runs our ESG as an ExCo member and chief of staff at the office of the CEO. And we are very clear that how we do banking, how we bank people and who we bank with needs and of course, those who come into the bank with us need to understand that we touch the planet and in a manner that will not punish our children and the next generations. It is in the products and the solutions we conceive. It is in how we do banking, and it is with whom is acceptable as a partner to us, whether in alliances, ecosystems, or as a beneficiary of what we do. And we are developing a scorecard that will be monitored, as I said, in the CEO's office, but also in the SETCOM committee of the board in that regard. Success, as I've indicated before for us, is not just in the bottom line, the size of the balance sheet or the scale of our business, but it is whether we are advancing lives. And therefore, ESG is in our strategy doc actually the part of the foundation to what we're doing.
Your leadership strategy and organizational strategy is to grow conservatively. And I wonder if I'm misreading. And if I am, please tell me that I'm misreading. And it really links to the question that Anele is raising around access to capital, which then means access to clients and access to funding of clients. And so when I look at your balance sheet, I'm seeing a much more conservative bank than the one that got into trouble, which is a good thing from a regulator point of view, but what can I read from it from a client perspective? And I'm really interested in a forward-looking perspective, a point of clarification, and then what does it mean on a forward-looking basis?
Now, your reading of where we are as of 2021 is spot on, Prof. And it is also in context. It is in the context of the third wave and the fourth wave. It is in the context of an economy that was in a deep recession given COVID. It is in the context of household income and disposable income being non-existent. And we then had to do the responsible thing and not lend recklessly when people were going through what was periods of unaffordability and the economy's wheels were just not grinding. What we can look forward to, in line with what I said, was the 4 strategic themes to strengthen our current core of customers, of products and services and distribution channels, is to see us in a managed way turn the tide. We are growing our sales credit, our sales quite considerably in terms of lending, in overdrafts, in unsecured lending, in credit card and debit card. We're growing quite nicely as the economy comes out of the tough 2 years that we've been into. We're out there supporting entrepreneurs, supporting households, supporting our customers to regain some lost ground. But we are also growing horizontally by ensuring, in what I said was our sales transformation initiative, that we grow that customer that has come to us for a loan so that they can extend their house. We want to grow from a customer lifetime value proposition. So make sure that you actually take on a MyWorld transactional account, that you add your children or your spouse into the pockets of that account, something that is not readily available in transactional banking from the other banks. Make sure that we help you budget and plan properly with using our savings pockets and capabilities in our MyWorld services, and make sure that we help you invest and plan better for the future in deploying more than just one solution in front of our customers we hope to grow much faster than just throwing lending on top of our singular clients. This is important for us. Prof, we turned from a loss in 2020 to just over $500 million in the group's bottom line last year. We clearly have got ambitions to list on the JSE. This requires a track record of profitable performance, and that is not going to come without us loosening our credit conservative criteria, which was upped in the eye of the storm during COVID. And of course, we keep in mind the risks that are emerging with Ukraine, Russia, and its impact on food prices, impact on households, petrol, energy prices here in South Africa. We're going to have to do this in a managed but a commercial and sustainable way.